The Alpha's Cinderella. An orphaned girl, Eliza Black, was left with her little brother after her former pack was massacred when she was 15 years old and her brother only 3. Eliza and her brother moved in with her friend in the Moon Knight pack and had lived happily for 3 years. But everything changed when she joined the Venari Lunae. Narrated by April, Kevin. Produced by Kathy Guo. Presented by wehear. Intro. Welcome new fans and old fans. Before you head into my new world, let's chat about how this world functions. Instead of my old story where there are only one alpha, one beta, and other kinds of stuff, in this new world, there are a bunch of alphas and betas and omegas. Below is the list of things you need to know, as it'll explain more. List. Alpha. Alphas are named as protectors. It's in their instinct to protect the weak and loved ones. Alphas are usually the one getting someone pregnant. Not unheard of, but it's usually female alphas that get pregnant. As for male alpha though, there are not a lot of male alphas bearing pups, as the percentage of them getting pregnant is 10%. But there are records of male alphas giving birth successfully to a healthy pup. Alphas also have what you call a rut once a month. It usually lasts for a week, and during this time, the percentage of getting someone pregnant is very high. Alphas usually have musky and earthy scents, more on the scent of nature. Beta. Betas are categorized into 2 kinds, dom and sub. Naturally, betas are able to pregnant someone and get pregnant themselves. When they come of age, they'll receive the instinct of their wolves that'll decide their fates in becoming dom or sub. Dom will end up getting someone pregnant, and sub will end up getting pregnant. But dom betas and sub betas have a lower percentage of getting someone pregnant or getting pregnant compared to alphas and omegas. Because of this, alphas or omegas rarely mates with betas, hence there is more percentage of betas mating each other. Betas will not have a rut or heat. Betas usually have no scent, but even if they do, it'll be very faint. Omegas are what you'll call the perfect mother hen. It's in their blood to be motherly, hence are more easier to approach than the previous 2. They have a high percentage of getting pregnant, but a very low percentage of getting someone pregnant, but it is not unheard of. There are records of pups having 2 omega parents. Not impossible, just rare. Omegas also will have what you call a heat once a month.
Cinderella.
A heat usually lasts for a week, and during this time, an omega's fertility is at the peak. Omegas usually have a sweet scent to them. Packs. Most of the wolves still live in packs, but there are some that moved out to form a smaller pack of their own that only contain family members. In a pack, there is a head alpha. Whatever the head alpha says, goes. Everyone listens to the head alpha, even fellow alphas. But if the current head alpha is unfit to be one, other alphas can challenge the head alpha in a duel. Nowadays, they don't do that anymore unless the alpha is abusing his power. Supernatural creatures. Other supernatural creatures like vampires, wizards, and witches does not fall into the statement above, but they all have their own tradition and will not have a Venari Lue. Also, instead of words like mates, mating, packs, and other kinds of stuff, each supernatural have their own naming to them. Mates and mating and pups and all are how the wolves call it. So if you see how other supernaturals call their fated ones or children in a different way, don't be confused. The statement above is written in a werewolf's perspective, as this story is usually talking about werewolves. Pairings between 2 different genes are not unheard of, but those who usually pair up with others are usually those who move out to form their own little pack. Chapter 1. The Attack. Mom! Dad! A teenage girl coughed as she waved the smoke away, her eyes watering. She tried to block out the screaming and growling around her as she continues her search. Nathan! Mom! Dad! The girl continues to shout out, but what she doesn't know is that all her shouting was attracting unwanted attention. A rogue snarled lowly as it trailed after the girl. When the girl tripped over, it pounced. The girl turned and screamed, but before the wolf could sink its teeth into her, another one jumped over her head and bit the previous one on the neck. The girl's eyes widened when she recognized the wolf that saved her. "Dad!" She heard someone running towards her direction from behind and tried to call away, but stopped when she heard a familiar voice. "Eliza!" The girl, Eliza, turned around, and she almost cried in relief when she saw the face of the person running towards her. "Mom!" Eliza's mom knelt in front of her. She was carrying something in her right hand, but she reached out her free and caressed Eliza's cheek. "Eliza, my baby girl, oh my God." Eliza's mom said tearfully as she pulled Eliza close to her chest. When they pulled away, Eliza's mom's eyes hardened as she looked into Eliza's eyes. "Listen to Eliza. You need to run. Run far away from here." "Mom, what?" Eliza was cut off when her mom pushed the thing she was carrying into her arms. Eliza looked down and saw her baby brother, Nathan, face covered in soot, but was uninjured. Nathan was currently sleeping peacefully, unknown of the war on the outside world. "Nathan, what? Mom!" Eliza asked as tears fell. Eliza's mom wiped the tears away, and she leaned in to kiss both Eliza and Nathan's head. "There's not much time. More and more rogues are coming, and our forces are growing smaller and smaller. You and Nathan have to leave, now." Eliza shook her head. "I'm not leaving, Mom. Head Alpha can save us. Eliza stopped. "He cannot save us anymore. He was gravely injured and—" Eliza's mom covered her mouth to stop the whimpers from leaving. Eliza's tear was flowing, not stop now. Her kind but strong head Alpha is dead. The head Alpha that always played with her and Nathan is dead. The head Alpha who treated his pack with warmth, but was fierce when any of his packmates are provoked. Her head Alpha is dead. She came back to her senses when she felt someone pulled her up from the ground. "Go, Eliza, go!" Eliza's mom urged her. Eliza shook her head. "No, Mom. Go!" Eliza's mom growled and pushed her toward the direction of the woods. Eliza sobbed. "I love you." With that, Eliza took off towards the woods, her baby brother in her arms securely.
Oh my goodness.
Eliza's mom smiled and whispered, "I love you too, both of you."
I love you too.
Eliza's mom turned and snarled as she shifted into a wolf and charged into the fight. Eliza had no idea how long she had been running, but it was long enough that Nathan had woken up.
"Eliza."
Eliza stopped as she looked down at Nathan. "Yes, Nathan?" Eliza asked, a little breathless.
"Where are Mom and Dad?"
Eliza looked at Nathan, speechless. How is she going to tell her baby brother that they won't be seeing their parents anymore? Mom and Dad have to leave for a while." Nathan squirmed with his brows furrowed.
"When will they come back?"
Eliza sighed. "Nathan, they're not coming back." Eliza immediately regretted her words as the horrified look on his face will forever swim in her memories.
They abandoned us?"
Nathan asked, eyes filled with unshed. Eliza said as she placed Nathan back on his feet and knelt in front of him. "Nathan, Mom and Dad didn't abandon us." Eliza started as she swept Nathan's hair out of his face. "Mom and Dad have to leave to ensure our safety. They have no other choice." Nathan pondered for a while.
"Did they went to where Granny is?"
Eliza's eyes widened. Their granny passed away a year ago. Nathan was only 2 years old then, not knowing the concept of death, so Nathan had cried very hard then, trying to search for his granny that'll never come back again. Their mom had cradled Nathan in her arms and explained to him carefully that Granny had gone to a place we cannot follow until we are as old as Granny. a paradise where the moon goddess resides in. Eliza smiled as her eyes shone with unshed tears. Yeah, they went to live with Granny. Nathan pouted as he reached out with his small, pudgy hand to wipe a stray tear from Eliza's face.
Don't cry, Eliza. The moon goddess will take care of them.
Nathan said and smiled. Eliza let out a small, amused huff. Yeah, she definitely will. Just then, they heard a low growl not far from where they stood. Eliza quickly gathered Nathan in her arms and pushed him up onto a tree branch. Quick, Nathan, climb as high as you can and stay there.
What about you, Eliza?
Nathan asked frantically as he reached out to her. I'll keep it away from you.
There are still more branches. Come on, climb up.
Eliza shook her head and said, If both of us are up there, nothing is protecting us from below. The growl was getting louder and louder by the second. Climb, Nathan. The further up, the better.
Eliza.
They heard the growl again, and there's no mistaking that the person growling is closer than ever. Just then, a bush behind Eliza shook, and a menacing beast stalked towards her, foaming at the mouth. Eliza growled at the wolf stalking towards her and prepared for the worst. She slowing squatted down, her eyes not leaving the red eyes of the wolf in front of her. Eliza felt around the ground around her, trying to find anything that could help her in her situation right now. The back of her hand hit something hard, and Eliza waited for the right moment. When the wolf was close enough, she quickly looked away and grabbed onto the thing her hand hit, which was a branch. At the same time, the wolf pounced on her when it saw her moving her attention from it. Unfortunately for the wolf, Eliza had already planned it out. She tightens her grasp on the branch and swings it as hard as she could towards the wolf. Eliza felt satisfied when she heard a loud crack and the sound of the wolf's body landing harshly on the ground. She looked down at the branch in her hand and noticed that the branch had broken in half. The other half was in splinters on the forest ground. But it was far from over. It wasn't long before the wolf stood up again. The wolf shook its head and growled at Eliza, way angrier than before. This time, the wolf had stopped its teasing and had straightaway pounced on Eliza. Having no time to find anything to protect herself, she quickly protected herself with her arm. The wolf's jaw latched onto one of her arm and Eliza screamed in pain.
Eliza.
Nathan shouted from above her. The wolf's jaw loosens a bit, distracted by Nathan's voice, but that's all Eliza needed. Eliza raised her legs and kicked at the wolf's body, hard. The wolf was flung away by the force of the kick and tumbled away, but the kick didn't cause any damage to the wolf. The wolf was quickly on its feet again and snarled at Eliza. Its gaze glared into Eliza's as it licked her blood of his snout. Eliza clutched onto the injured arm, not caring about the rapidly flowing blood trickling down from her arm. She backed up slowly when the wolf took more and more steps towards her. It wasn't long before her back hit the tree Nathan was on and took this chance to pounce. Eliza closed her eyes and raised her arm again and waited for the bite. But it never came. Instead, another growl was heard and the harsh sound of bodies slamming together flow into her ear. Eliza opened her eyes and saw another wolf, a blonde one, fighting with the previous one. At first, Eliza thought they were fighting over who gets to eat her, but looking closer, the newcomer was way cleaner compared to the dirty, mud-covered previous one. Eliza watched with barely hidden awe at how the newcomer was easily overpowering the previous one. The fight ended when the newcomer managed to latch its teeth onto the previous one's throat and pulled a chunk of meat out. The previous wolf whimpered pitifully before letting out its last breath. When the newcomer made sure the previous one stayed dead, it turned towards her. Fear clutched onto Eliza's herd again as she backed up more into the tree. The wolf seemed to widen its eyes before the sound of bone breaking can be heard. Eliza watched as the wolf slowly turned into a man. The man was maybe in his late 20s with shaggy blonde hair and warm brown eyes.
Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you.
These are my Nikes.
The man said. Who are you? Eliza whispered. Eliza was fighting to stay awake as she looked up at the man with bleary eyes.
My name is Keith. I'm from the neighbor pack. You're part of the Howling Mountain pack, right?
Eliza nodded.
Head Alpha Octavian sent a wolf to our pack to inform of the attack on his and ask for help.
Keith said. He looked down and saw the state of her arm and winced.
Let's get you out of here and get your arm treated.
Keith moved to carry her, but Eliza grabbed onto his arm with her uninjured arm. My brother, Eliza whispered. She was tired. So tired.
Where is your brother?
Eliza didn't reply to him, but looked up. Keith followed her gaze and saw a tear-stricken face of Nathan above them, clutching onto a tree branch tighten. Eliza watched as Keith stood up and raised his arms toward Nathan.
Don't be afraid. I'm here to help. Let's get you and your sister out of here, and your sister needs immediate treatment.
Nathan looked at Keith wordlessly but nodded. He slowly climbed down, and when he was close enough, Keith went closer and carried him down. Eliza felt Nathan landed beside her and felt his cold hand clutching onto her shoulders.
Eliza!
Nathan cried when Eliza didn't him. Keith, who heard Nathan's cries quickly, squatted down to check on Eliza's state. Eliza was breathing shallowly, her face slowly losing its color.
Hey, Eliza, was it? You have to stay with me. Stay with me, okay?
Keith said as he gently shook Eliza awake. I'm so tired, Eliza whispered.
I know, but you have to stay awake until we get you treated. Can you do that for me?
Keith said as he out something and wrapped it tightly around her injured arm. Eliza didn't even felt the pain. She was just numb. Eliza nodded wordlessly.
Keith?
A voice shouted from a distance. Keith looked away and shouted back.
Over here, I found someone.
Eliza tried to stay awake, but it was getting harder and harder. Eventually, her eyes closed.
Eliza!
Eliza heard someone cried. Was it Nathan? She not so sure anymore as her ears were shutting out too.
Eliza, wake up! Eliza! Keith!
The same voice from before exclaimed, but it was closer. Way closer than before.
We have to get her out. She had lost a lot of blood and is quickly running out.
Keith said.
Yes, sir.
Then there was someone shaking her again.
Come on, Eliza. Wake up. Eliza!